Hello and welcome to our weekly podcast. Today we will talk about the famous Peloponnesian War in 431 BC between the two biggest city-states in ancient Greece, Sparta and Athens. To give more inside information, I invited three important historical figures to answer some of my questions. First, we have Pericles of Athens, a Greek politician and general during the Golden Age of Athens. He was famous and influential in Athens between the Greco-Persian War and the Peloponnesian War, and was acclaimed by Thucydides, a contemporary historian, as the first citizen of Athens. Hello everyone! I'm so excited to be here and to answer all of your questions. Thank you, Pericles. We're happy to have you here today. The second person I would like to introduce is King Archidamus of Sparta, who was a commander during the Peloponnesian War. The first 10 years of the Peloponnesian War was known as the Archidamian War, which was 431 BC to 421 BC, when Archidamus led the Peloponnesian force to Attica and destroyed the land. That's why the first 10 years of the Peloponnesian War was named after him. That is correct. It is a pleasure to participate in this podcast. Thank you for inviting me. Well, thank you for coming. The last person I would like to introduce is Thucydides. He is an Athenian historian and general who wrote the book The History of the Peloponnesian War, as well as the famous speech given by Pericles at the funeral after the first battle of the Peloponnesian War. Thank you. I'm also really excited for today's podcast. Of course, you all play very important roles in the war, and I'm happy to ask you questions. To get this interview started, my first question is, how did the Peloponnesian War happen? Sparta and Athens were allies against the Persians after the Persian War. What happened? Pericles, why don't you start? After the Persian War, where Athens and Sparta fought against the Persians, we agreed to a peace treaty. We didn't want to fight anymore, since the war took many of our men, and we were exhausted. We needed time to rebuild our armies, so we signed a 30-year peace treaty. During this time, we created the Delian League. We began to become really wealthy and decided to be in charge of all the money. We meant to protect all Greece from further Persian influence. We were able to control it because of our powerful navy, and the other members of the League had to contribute funds and supplies while we fielded the ships. It was easy to build up our power like this and create our own empire. The reason the Peloponnesian War happened was the idea of democracy. We wanted to have freedom and be able to vote who our leader would be. Economy was important and we wanted to trade. Okay, thank you for your statement. Archidamus, why were you against Athens? The Spartans were a strong group of people who raised their kids at an early age to be warriors. We wanted to choose our leader and trade, but we didn't trust Athens. We didn't want a democracy. We believed more in a oligarchy, which is a different kind of government, which selects a small group of people to be in charge. It was not fair for them to hold on to all the money. Other city-states should be in charge of the money as well. Well, while Athens did their little power play, we created the Peloponnesian League, a strong land force, without taking advantage of our allies like Athens did. We had respect, but even though we agreed to a 30-year of peace between the two of us, a conflict in the city-state Corinth happened, and we decided to go to war with Athens. They tried to influence our political decision. Wow, those are strong statements from both sides. How did the war influence life in Athens? Well, Sparta tried so hard to invade Athens multiple times, but we built a long wall that went from the sea all the way to Piraeus. That held you guys off. It allowed us to stay in the city, but we were still able to get to our ships and to trade. We were able to attack you overseas to get supplies for us, and you were not able to invade us for decades. Okay, we might weren't able to invade you, but were you able to go wherever you want? No. You were under siege for decades. You even suffered a plague, which killed a lot of men inside your walls. Then you sent thousands of troops against one of our allies in South Sicily. It didn't end well for you. Captured or sunk every ship of yours, and your soldiers got either killed, captured, or sold into slavery. Later, in 4 or 5 BC, we surprised your fleet in Anatolia and destroyed it. We destroyed your defense, but not your city. Throughout the Peloponnesian War, Greece changed. At the end, we even made an ally with Persia, an old enemy, just to finally defeat Athens. A good thing that happened after the war would be we got more open-minded to the world. Sparta changed into a naval power, even though we fought better on land. The invincibility of Sparta was destroyed. Greece was divided and weakened. Thank you for explaining how the war happened between both of you. It was really interesting to get inside information. Now my next question will go to Thucydides. Since you wrote the book of the history of the Peloponnesian War, why did you choose to do so, and why did you write the speech for Pericles? I believed it would be a great war and more worthy of relation than any other that had preceded it. I wrote the speech for Pericles not only to bury the dead, but to praise democracy. In my speech, I emphasized the greatness of Athens in order to convey that the citizens of Athens must continue to support the war, to show them that what they were fighting for was at the utmost importance. If you want, I can give you a paragraph of the speech right now. Oh, yes, that would be amazing. For Athens alone of her contemporaries is found when tested to be greater than her reputation, and alone gives no accusation to her assailants to blush at the antagonist by whom they have been worsted, or to her subjects to question her title by merit the rule. Rather, the admiration of the present and succeeding age will be ours, since we have not left our power without witness, but have shown it by mighty proofs. And far from needing a Homer for our Panacrates, or other of his craft whose verse might charm for the moment, only for the impression which they give to melt at the touch of fact, we have forced every sea and land to be the highway of our daring, and everywhere, wherever for evil or for good, have left imperishable monuments behind us. Such is the Athens for which these men, in the assertion of their resolve not to lose her, nobly fought and died, and well may every one of their survivors be ready to suffer in her cause. Thank you so much for the opportunity to do this interview with all of you. It was a pleasure to have all of you here, and I hope you enjoyed the podcast.